go? Good morning.
Good morning.
We're glad. I've been looking at Practical Metaphysics, a new book from Eric Butterworth. Now, it's actually transcribed from one of his workshops, and it was put together by Mark Hicks, one of our friends LUTs up at UCO, and he had it transcribed, and it was edited into a book. And the book's kind of fascinating. Val and Neil are going to be leading a group of folks that are going to be reviewing it. Frankly, they think they're going to get it done in 6 weeks. I don't think you will get it done in 6 weeks. I'm saying that now.
We're fine. We're just going to take our time. Spirit lead us.
Well, when are you starting that, by the way?
We're in February now, right?
Yes.
The first Sunday in March.
Okay. Which is
March 4th.
March 4th, good. That's 30 days away. Or 28 days away. Good. But what happened to me was I was reading in the book, back in on page 85, and it's talking about being on a spiritual path. And being on a spiritual path, part of the spiritual path is doing things like prayer and meditation and reading books and hanging out with people that think the same way and really working on our thoughts and actions in life. And then he says this, you ready? He said, all these things are very important and very helpful, yet we completely overlook the very important matter of speech. A person may deal with the truths of mystic power and still allow a steady stream of negations to fall unchecked from their lips. You understand what that means? That means verbally complaining, condemning, or criticizing in any way, shape, or form. And then he goes on and says, a person may deal with the truths of mystic, and it is much like trying to drive your car with the brakes on. Now, we have a parking brake on the car, on the truck, and occasionally I will put it in gear and wonder why it doesn't go forward. Anybody ever done something like that?
Mm-hmm. Never.
It's a common occurrence. It's funny. And that metaphor really said, oh, wow, look at that. Because how many times do I criticize somebody? How many times do I complain, even about the door sticks or something's wrong? So if you stop and think about it, there's a power in speech. And so when I complain, what am I doing? I'm actually creating what I don't want. So when I complain, I'm creating more of what I'm complaining about. Does that make any sense? So it's really, literally like trying to drive a car with the brakes on. So I want to pursue that a little bit, work on that a little bit. He goes on and says here, he says, people are creative creatures. As we have said, the cutting edge of this creativity, the cutting edge of the whole involvement in the idea of spirituality and metaphysics is in the power of the spoken word. So stop and think about that. One of the few things we have absolute control over is what we speak. Now, I don't know about you, but once you get involved in these ideas and try to sit quietly in meditation, thoughts come from everywhere. Agree? It's like, how do you stop them? And it takes time. It takes work. But we're constantly in this battle with those thoughts that come in. But would you agree we have complete control over what we speak?
Yes.
And I can choose to speak.
With practice.
With practice. But you understand that we have control over what we speak. And the minute I'm speaking according to the ancient wisdom plus quantum physics, when I speak, I'm actually creating that which I'm speaking. So when I'm complaining about somebody, somebody would go nuts on it. You don't like me talking about the political environment, but it's one of the things we deal with every day. So if I don't like Mr. Trump or Mr. Schumer and I complain about them, what am I creating more of? Them. And Terry did a great job on prayer this morning, and there's one phrase that stuck out for me. You ready? Release expectation of the outcomes. So I'm going to say that again. Release expectation of the outcomes. See, when I let go and turn things over to God and then try to run it, what am I doing? I'm trying to run the car with the brake on. Because I'm saying, God, take care of it. Don't keep up. And then we start running, and we put the brake on. Okay, it's really fascinating to me, and I'm very thankful for this book, by the way. It's a very, very practical, it's practical metaphysics, if I can use that terminology. But it's a good book, and we've got it for sale on the back table if you would like to take some home with you. So it led me to some other things. And if you really start looking in the Bible, Proverbs, it says the power of death is in the tongue, which means we can speak death, if you will. Okay? And stop and think about it. How many times have we condemned somebody? I wish they'd just go away and die. So what are we doing? And I bring that up. It didn't even bother me saying that. I'm ready to cancel. Okay? Because these are truths. And the problem is we get so used to casual conversation. Anybody familiar with casual conversation? As a matter of fact, now I'm going to use a technical term. Everybody ready? When you're out with the muggles. But when you're out with the muggles, sometimes you're not in tune unless you're complaining about something. And I do. I admit, I will sometimes, wow, what do you think of the weather? Just to get into the vibration with them so we can associate. But what am I doing? Am I in a way affecting the weather? Now, that's a little bit outrageous, but stop and think about it. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Back Proverbs, and if you don't know the Bible, Proverbs was the list of all the things to do in the Jewish faith, okay? So it was a list of, here's all the good things you should be doing, and it talks about speech way back 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. Then Jesus got involved, and he started saying things, and let me share this with you. You ready? I got my glasses ready to put on. So I've been really looking at this power that we have in the speech that we use. So he says, either produce like a good tree with good fruits or produce like a bad tree with bad fruits. Jesus uses the analogies all the time when he says, he was asked, how can you tell somebody that's good or somebody that's bad? And he said, by their fruits you shall know them. So he talked about the fruits that come from us. So if somebody has good fruits in their life, they've had good thoughts or good words. So I think it would behoove us to use good words and get away from negation type words. Okay? Then it goes on and says, how can you speak good things when you are bad? For the mouth speaks from the fullness of the heart. Now, in the meditation, you heard Donald talking about connecting the mind and the heart. And that's the latest ideas. The center of awareness is really the heart. And we've been trained to think in the mind, so it's learning to soften the heart and bring the heart into the thinking so that we are God-centered or Christ-centered. So the center of Christness, if I can use that terminology, might be considered the heart, and the absolute is connecting the heart and the brain so that they are functioning in a spiritual tone. So it goes on and says, for the mouth speaks from the fullness of the heart. Shall I say that again? In other words, when your heart is full of love or spirit, that's what it speaks. Okay? Now, it's the other way around. When your heart's full of that other stuff, that's what comes out. You ever been around somebody that just cannot talk positive? Okay? I don't know about you, but you know, and here's another one. You ready? We talk about idle words. In verse 36, for I say to you that for every foolish word or idle word which men speak, they will have to answer for on the day of judgment. Now, anybody share with me, when is the day of judgment? Today, when you speak it. The day of judgment is our consciousness that we bring into the world that creates the world around us. So we are literally speaking into effect the world that we're living in. So we say, hi there, good morning, what a wonderful day. I begin this day with love in my heart, and maybe that will start the day with love in your heart. So what I speak is formative. It's absolutely formative. and verse 37, for by your words shall ye be justified, and by your words shall ye be found guilty or condemned. So our words, see, there's nobody out there judging us. This is the big thing. and this is the thing that I had to get through my head. There's no God sitting on a cloud somewhere ticking off what I do. There's just me putting out my thoughts and words into the ethers, and it's coming back to me. Okay? So who is judging you? You. We're creating our world. Every day we speak. Now, Unity has, for years, the whole foundation of Unity has been on affirmative prayer. And affirmative prayer is the idea that I'm not praying asking for anything. I'm praying giving thanks that it has already occurred. Because by grace are you saved by faith, that not of yourselves. So you're already saved, you're already there, everything's okay. You're already a child of God, you don't have to prove it to anybody. You just have to start speaking like a child of God. Everybody got it? So how would a child of God speak? Huh?
Is that how you do it? You yell?
Yeah. It's kind of like the wake up. We were talking about some of the things that speakers need to do. Number one, you never open blinds behind you. You never have mirrors behind you. Another thing you do is once in a while you holler to wake people up. But this power, the power of the spoken word is just phenomenal. And in a way, I wasn't bringing it in. I wasn't saying, hey, here's an issue. And I really got it's like driving a car with the brake on when I'm doing all this work, meditation, 20 minutes morning, 20 minutes evening, prayer work, everything else. And if I'm speaking other than God words, I'm actually going backwards in a way. I'm driving the car with the brake on. Expecting wonderful things in my life because I'm doing the work, but I ain't doing all the work. And I use ain't on purpose. So it's a fascinating idea. Now, if you go into the next step, everybody ready? You got to look at 12 powers. Okay? And in here, Charles Fillmore talks about the power center of the body. Some of you students, where's the power center of the body? In the throat. In other words, he identified years ago that this is the power center of our being. And he talks in here. And he says the power center in the throat controls all the vibratory energies of the organism. So we know everything is vibration. Everything is a vibration. That chair you're sitting on is a vibration. And it's just a very dense vibration, so it holds together so you can sit on it. So everything around us, the air, the ethers, the light, everything is a vibration of some sort. So the power center, the throat, the larynx, if you will, is nothing more than an instrument that vibrates. And it creates a vibration that goes out into the ethers and creates. So a lot of people say, well, I'm an expression of God. How can you say that? Well, in Genesis, what did it say? It said, and God said, let there be light. So the idea of a spoken word is with us from the beginning. And if we're expressions of God, do we have the same power? I have to believe that. Okay? So it goes on and says here, a little bit more. Did I lose my place? Probably. The power center of the body controls all. It is the open door between the formless, which is the ethers around us, and form, worlds of vibration pertaining to the expression of sound. Now, there's some fancy words in there, but it's the sound that we create goes out and into the ethers and creates. Brings things out of the ethers into form. Okay? And then it says, every word that goes forth receives its specific character from the power facility in your throat. Can I say that again? Mm-hmm. Every word goes forth, receives its specific character from the power faculty in our throat. So when I speak disparagingly, I'm creating whatever I've talked about disparagingly for myself. Because I don't affect anybody out there. Everything, the kingdom of heaven is where? Within. And everything that I experience is from within me out. So I've been really looking at this. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away, is what Spirit through Jesus said. So as we speak, and those of you that want to get into the rather esoteric areas, know about the Akashic records, which are like a big Microsoft cloud out there. Everything you have ever spoken or thought is stored in the Akashic records out there. So every word I speak is stored. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but there's some words I don't want to remember. Okay? Anybody familiar with technical language? I learned a lot of technical language when I was in the Navy. Okay? And, you know, it's easy to get back into that vernacular. I'll call it the vernacular. And whatever it is, and I've been looking at this more and more and more. The affirmations from Catherine Ponder, and we keep giving them out. I'm going to give some, not today, but we're going to give some more out. If we can just get you to start reading them every day out loud. Why? Because the power of your life is in the spoken word. And how many times do we speak lack during the day? Okay? And if we don't speak it, we think it, and sooner or later it comes out. So this idea over and over again is that, and I'm going back here. Okay, it says, for by our words shall ye be justified, by your words shall ye be found guilty or condemned. So, the idea that I have the power to speak into whatever issues I'm dealing with, okay? I have the power to speak into every issue I'm dealing with. So if I'm talking sickness, what should I expect? Sickness. If I'm talking overcoming sickness, I'm overcoming sickness. So the idea over and over again, and Unity has said, if you have a short pocketbook, start praising it, and the pocketbook will be filled up. Anybody ever heard that before? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but in the world teaches us you can't do that because you're not telling the truth. But on a spiritual level, what are we doing? Telling the truth of our being, which is a spiritual being.
So it's really interesting. They're just saying, people don't remember what you said. People don't remember what you did. People remember how you made them feel. And while there's some truth to that, I think that people very much remember what you said. And probably corresponding with that is that you may have made them feel good or made them feel bad, but sometimes they really can understand and remember what you said. In addition to that, you remember the things that you tell yourself.
Yes.
So I think that you really do have to be careful with words that you use towards other people, whether they're positive or negative, and what words do you use to yourself?
Yes.
Because that your body remembers those things. So your body creates physical responses to that.
It's really fascinating. It really is. And Val speaking just reminded me, the prayer chaplains, you know, when we take a call, or they take a call, they're calling you on a prayer. If somebody says, well, I have this issue, so the immediate reaction is, well, thank you for sharing that. I see you complete and whole, or some form of that. So they are reversing the words you have used in describing an issue. And I've had people tell me, well, and it's an immediate thank you, it is. Because the thought has shifted from, I'm sick, into, I'm a child of God and cannot know sickness, and I know health is my true state of being. And see, again, it's changing that thought through the words that we speak. Yes?
I was just reading about our interior experience and even our life. If it's not, we're not expressing what we want, and we're not as pious, and we want to be loving, and we're not as loving as we want to be, that it's really important to be gentle on ourselves and not like self-flagellating, because that's actually kind of prideful, and so we're just it calls for trust. Even when we're not exhibiting what we think God wants from us, we need to trust that God is acting in us and through us.
And that's the words. The word. It's interesting.
Right.
Because if you really stop and think about it, one of the biggest issues we have is controlling thought. You know, the example they always use is don't think of a white elephant, or but no one think of a white elephant. Okay? So immediately you're stuck thinking of a white elephant. And it's not easy to change that thought unless I say, okay, there's actually gray elephants. Then your mind shifts. So it's through the power of the words that we can control things. The mind sometimes wants its own, it does its own thing. Remember that we're living in a cloud of 7 billion people thinking. You get it? I'm going to say it again. We're living in a cloud of 7 billion people thinking. So somebody has to say, no, I don't want to think like the rest of the world. I want to think differently, and that's where I start speaking the truth. Okay? Everybody open your bulletin. Okay? What? I got stuck. Thank you. And the inside front, there's an affirmation. We have an affirmation in there every week. Okay? And this is something to say to yourself. So, I'm going to read it out loud. I am open and receptive to God's good in every phase of my life now. How does that feel to you? So I want everybody to say it together. Are you ready? I am open and receptive to God's good in every phase of my life now. Take a deep breath. How's that feel? I could even feel a shift in this room. Just through the verbalization of the truth. Because your inner self, your higher self, knows the truth. And when you verbalize it on purpose, you are taking control of your life. Okay? So a lot of us spend a lot of time in meditation, prayer, affirmative prayer, etc. Again, maybe we need to start speaking the truth more often. I do. I know that's true. So, I for some reason, I go right in my notes. I go back to the idea during there. And I know this is crazy, but I was a kid during the Second World War and Korean War, and there was this statement. They didn't want people to talk so much about secret things, so the phrase was "loose talk sinks ships." You remember that?
Loose lips.
Loose lips. Excuse me. Loose lips. So I decided loose lips sink dreams. Stop and think about that. Loose lips sink dreams. So the idea behind it is let's start speaking into things in a positive way, creating only good in our lives. For each other, for our church, and for our family. And for the political situation we're dealing with now. Because, as Kerry said, we are releasing expected outcomes. And the outcomes are where? In God's hands. So the idea is let's stop trying to run everything. And if you would like me to, Madeline and I do have a letter resigning as Master of the Universe that we have people sign. So I'll bring one in next week, okay? I love you. I appreciate you greatly. And let's speak only the truth. I see you complete and whole. I see you wealthy, healthy, happy, and surrounded by all the good things in your life. Blessings.